Welcome to today's Deep Dive Explainer. We're jumping right into one of the most profound mysteries in ancient mystical texts, Vayachi Yaakov Be'eretz Mitzrayim, or Jacob living in the land of Egypt.
Right, and to really set this scene, I want you to picture this incredibly cinematic 4K heritage visual in your mind. Golden sands stretching out endlessly, slowly fading into twilight. The dark waters of the Nile are reflecting this otherworldly cosmic light. And right in the center of it all, the patriarch Jacob is lying on his bed, surrounded by his 12 sons. There's this undeniable radiance breaking straight through the dense exile. It's a striking image for sure, but it's actually housing an incredibly complex spiritual mechanism.
Which brings us to the ultimate paradox we're tackling today. Think about it. How exactly does Jacob, lying on his deathbed in literally the darkest, most hostile epicenter of the ancient world, not only survive, but achieve his absolute highest level of prophecy?
Exactly. How do you thrive in the ultimate exile? That paradox right there, the Vayechi, meaning and he lived, in a place that spiritually represented the exact opposite of life, that's the mystery we are decoding today.
Well, according to the Zohar, when the famine hit, the text says Jacob saw that there was a fracture, or grain, in Egypt.
Right, but mystical interpretation tells us he wasn't just looking at physical grain to feed his family. No way. He possessed a supreme prophetic vision. He perceived the underlying spiritual brokenness, the actual cosmic mechanics of the Egyptian matrix. He saw that these divine sparks had fallen into this incredibly dense system, and that his family was going to have to descend into the fracture of exile just to retrieve them.
So, to truly understand how Jacob operated in such an intense environment, we've got to look at the level of Sod. Now, Sod is basically the deepest, encrypted layer of reality and mystical interpretation in these ancient texts. The best way to grasp this is through a modern tech analogy. Jacob living in Egypt is literally the ultimate Sod. He's essentially a hidden server running deep inside highly hostile territory. His main job? Maintaining an encrypted, totally unhackable divine signal right in the middle of a system that's explicitly designed to crush it. Let's compare his environments for a second. When Jacob was back in Canaan, he was operating on an open network, right? The spiritual connection was direct, it was accessible. But transitioning to Egypt, that is like taking a pristine cloud instance and migrating it straight into a hostile, malware-filled swamp. The texts say he survived this dark matrix by constantly authenticating and unifying that divine network. When he reunited with Joseph, he was actually reciting the Shema. That's the ultimate code of unity, used to lock down the encryption and keep the divine signal totally intact while surrounded by the Egyptian operating system. Section 1. Cosmic Engineering. Mapping the Sephirot. Okay, so to grasp how this hidden server actually functioned, we need to shift gears and look at the cosmic engineering blueprint found in mystical texts like the Etz Chaim and the Shar HaKavanan. We're looking at the Sephirot, the divine energy centers. It's amazing how perfectly the patriarchs map to this spiritual grid.
Absolutely. Jacob acts as the Sephirah of Yesod. Now, Yesod is the foundation. It's the central transmission node of divine energy. But where's he transmitting this energy? He's plugging directly into the dense, restrictive motherboard of Malchut, or kingdom, which here manifests as the Egyptian exile. Jacob is this pure node transmitting light into a system that fundamentally resists it.
Mapping this out, the full cosmic architecture becomes super clear. We've got Yesod functioning as our transmission server node, and Malchut acting as the hostile network of exile. But check out that third row, Zeir and Pin. This represents the overarching divine system of emotional attributes. Because Egypt was so intensely dangerous spiritually, the text explained that the divine system actually had to go into Ibor, which is a protective gestation mode. It's literally a cosmic system reboot, a safe mode designed specifically to safeguard the cosmic data and prevent that hostile Egyptian network from siphoning off any divine light during the entire exile. Section 2. Sacred Code. Numbers and Color Shifts. Now, this cosmic software isn't just conceptual. It is governed by very specific numerical frequencies and color shifts that literally act as the source code of reality. Let's look at the programming language Jacob was actually using. First up, the number 13. In Gematria, the mystical tradition where Hebrew letters hold specific numeric values, 13 is the value for Echad, meaning unity, and Ahava, meaning love. This 13 is the ultimate, unhackable frequency that Jacob is broadcasting right from his bed. By gathering his 12 sons around him, plus himself, they form this unified matrix of 13, totally locking in the divine signal. But why is the number 13 so absolutely vital here? It's because that 13 has to constantly mitigate the number 5.
Right. In this mystical framework, 5 represents the 5 Gevurot. We are talking about severe judgments here. These are the strict, heavily armed firewalls of the Egyptian system that actively want to restrict and just extinguish the light. Jacob transmitting that 13 is literally the only thing keeping the severe judgments of the 5 from causing a complete system crash.
And visually, this numeric code actually manifests as a color shift. Drawing from the Pardes Ramonum, we see this epic battle of frequencies represented by red versus white. Red is the color of din, that's strict judgment, the severe firewalls, the spilled blood of exile and hard labor.
On the exact opposite end, you've got white. White represents rachamim, pure mercy, peace, and the systemic healing that Jacob is desperately channeling into the grid.
So, putting it all together, you really see Jacob's cosmic balancing act. Lying there in his deathbed, he is acting as the master engineer. He's channeling the unity frequency of 13, he's actively mitigating the strict severity of the 5 Sephirot, and by doing all that, he shifts the entire spiritual grid of his family's future from red judgment to white mercy.
He's stabilizing the network so his descendants can actually survive the coming darkness. And that specific stabilization, it sets the stage for something much, much bigger, a framework that expands way beyond Egypt.
Section 3. Unlocking Levels. The Exile Matrix.
Because Jacob's deathbed prophecies weren't just about Egypt, right? Think of his visions as a massive, multi-generational video game simulation where the collective soul of his descendants has to unlock progressively harder levels of exile.
Exactly. Jacob foresaw the players, the Jewish people, navigating through these massive cosmic simulations. Level 1 is the Egyptian exile. That's the incubator where the family literally becomes a nation. But his vision pierced way further. He saw Level 2, the Edomite exile, representing Rome and the long historical dispersion. And finally, he saw straight through to Level 3, the ultimate messianic timeline, where the game is finally beaten and the original fractured state of reality is completely repaired.
But let's focus back on Level 1 for a second. Every video game level has a programmed time limit, right? Well, the number 210 is absolutely crucial here. 210 is the gematria of the word redo, meaning go down, which is exactly what Jacob said to his sons when he initially sent them to Egypt.
Right, 210 years was the original time limit programmed for the Egyptian simulation. Mystical texts like the Gate of Intentions explain that this number is mathematically tied to the 10 iterations of the divine name Ayeya. It dictated exactly how long the data extraction would take.
But to beat this seemingly impossible level, there was an ultimate cheat code programmed into the system. I love this part. Referencing the Tikkun Zohar, the Exodus from Egypt is mentioned exactly 50 times in the Torah. 50 times. That is not a coincidence. It corresponds directly with the 50 gates of Bina, or understanding. Accessing those 50 gates of higher consciousness was the precise energetic requirement needed to break the physical and spiritual locks of the Egyptian matrix. Which leads us to the exhaustive mechanics of the redemption protocol itself. It was a rigorous 3-step process. First, the descent into the iron furnace, a place of immense pressure designed to literally melt down the raw materials of the nation. Second, the rigorous purification and extraction of the scattered holy sparks. That's the hidden data trapped inside the darkest servers of Egypt. And finally, step 3, once those sparks were secured, they had to overload the matrix with divine light that completely short-circuited the severe judgments and triggered the Exodus.
Section 4. Transmission Node. Messianic Convergence.
This brings our explainer full circle, back to that cinematic 4K heritage visual we started with, Jacob's bed. This bed is the ultimate nexus point. It's the center of gravity where all these timelines, all these levels of exile and redemption perfectly converge.
Right before Jacob passes, he establishes the ultimate continuity. The text highlights this phrase, "Joseph, my son, is still alive." By confirming Joseph is alive, Jacob ensures that the encrypted signal survives him. Joseph becomes the continuation of that Yesod transmission node. Jacob is effectively transferring his admin privileges and securing the network before logging out of the physical realm, knowing the system is in safe hands for the long exile ahead.
So what does this ancient cosmic tech actually mean for you? Well, you are engaged in your own spiritual engineering. You yourself are a transmission node in your daily environment.
Absolutely.
Your positive actions and focus are constantly extracting holy sparks from the mundane world around you. Every single day, you're tasked with balancing those red energies, the strict judgments, the anger, the firewalls, with the white energies of mercy, patience, and unity. The ultimate question is, which level of the exile matrix will your soul unlock and elevate today? Thank you for joining us for this complete journey through the Pardes. We hope these ancient truths help you and your family improve your own dimensions this week. If you enjoyed this full chapter deep dive, please like, subscribe, and share which part of the journey touched your soul in the comments. We'll see you in the next chapter.